So we have a Philodendron radiatum inflorescence here that is at basic peak female anthesis, which means she is receptive to take pollen. She is looking for pollen suitors. The spadix is giving off heat thanks to this process known as thermogenesis, where they use up energy and essentially give off heat so that it can attract beetles that would come and pollinate it. So tonight I'm going to try and be like a beetle. So I'm going to cut back the spathe here. I'm trying to be mindful of the camera. And I'm doing this because the top portion of the spadix that you see tomorrow night will be male flowers, but the female flowers that we need to get to pollinate are down in here in the floral chamber that the spathe is enclosing. So I need to be able to cut the spathe away to reveal access and get in there to be able to apply the pollen. Whew! Alright, that was a challenge in and of itself. The rest of this is going to be easy. So we have pollen from 2 different donors. So this pollen was collected back in November. So we have 2 different pollen donors. So this is from Philodendron ligulatum variety Heriocleanum. And this is Jose Bueno pollen that was also collected in November. So we are going to take this. They had been living in the refrigerator, and so I had them thaw for a couple hours. And now that they've gotten up to room temperature, I'm going to take a paintbrush that has a little bit of water in it and attempt to take the pollen and put it on the paintbrush and then apply it to these flowers. All right. So when I put the pollen in the refrigerator, I included a desiccant packet, which basically is one of those silica packets that takes all of the moisture out of it. And I do that so that if there was moisture in there, it could potentially mold. But with it being really dry, it preserves longer without, going bad. But because of that, they were really, really dry. And so I had to use a lot of water on my paintbrush to basically re-moisten it in a way that I can now apply it. It's almost like a paste. Also, to the touch, these female flowers are very sticky right now, which is good because we need that for the pollen to then be able to go in each of those pollen tubes so that it'll create and go down to the egg and then hopefully hybridize and pollinate the eggs in each of these flowers. So I'm just applying it to some of them because I want to now apply the Jose Bueno pollen, and then I'll come back and do a second dose and then a second dose. I want to give them both equal chances. You can see it on the part of this paintbrush here where it's like basically a slurry. A pollen slurry. That sounds delicious. It's so hard working around. There's like 5 other inflorescences on this plant that haven't fully developed yet, but I'm trying to be ever so careful working around. Alright, so now I'm going to do just a I mean, since we're out here and we're taking the time to attempt the cross, I might as well be extra thorough. Plus I have the pollen. I'm using a very little amount of what I have stored, so why not? I have the pollen do the cross. And now for the final round of Jose Bueno. Alright, and so now, naturally the next steps of what would happen would have been, if this, of course, in the wild was still attached to the plant, what would have happened is the male part of the spadix will pull back in a little bit, and then tomorrow night it will release pollen. And they'll come out like strings. It looks like if you stepped on a tube of toothpaste and all the toothpaste came out, that's how it releases the pollen in these weird, like, silly string almost. And the bottom part of the spathe would close up around and basically keep the hopefully developing eggs and berries inside of it safe, essentially. Think of it like, you know, a pregnant woman's stomach. How it'll swell and keep it all in there safe and tight as they develop. Because we cut that off, I'm going to put a bag around it just to make sure nothing from, I don't know, water or an animal, God forbid, or something gets to it. So